I was in the Navy for about 4.5 years. I did aviation maintenance administration. And I joined because so I grew up in Detroit, which also has a lot of stereotypes, but I grew up in a really nice area, a really privileged community, but I was not very privileged, and I had to work for everything that I wanted. So when I was looking into going to school, and all my friends were going to school, or they had, their parents were taking care of them, I was kind of daunted by the task of, okay, I have to have this insanely high GPA, I have to have all these extracurriculars, and then I have to find out some way to pay all this money to go to school. And so the whole process just stressed me out, and I had no idea what to do. So my brother, who's somebody that I always looked up to, he was in the military before, he joined the Marine Corps, and he and he told me that it would kind of solve a lot of the problems that I was facing. It would help me to become financially independent and stable. It would give me really good skills that a lot of companies like to have when they're hiring people. And then he also said that it would make it easier to get hired also, and that bonus, it would also pay for school. So I joined, I went to MEPS a week after I graduated high school. So scared going to boot camp. I will never forget that day. And yeah, I would say that just like a lot of other military veterans here, it really shaped who I am. And it also allowed me to have a ground and a foundation to work off of. When I think about the kind of work that I do now and how I process things, I'm directly pulling from my time in the Navy. I worked my way up. I started as an E1 because I was 18, and I worked my way up to E5 because I really enjoyed taking a program that was it was a huge problem child. It was nobody really wanted to work on it, or it was very challenging, or maybe kind of boring. But I looked at it as a way to kind of take an inefficiency and make it efficient, which is something that I really love to do. And so I did that over and over again. And then something also that a lot of people don't know, hiring manager wise, is that in the Navy, it's not so much based off of your merit where you get promoted. It's more based off of your test scores and then also your evals. So every 6 months you go through a process where you have to study for tests, and then you have to pass tests in order to get promoted. And you're tested much more on your intellect than you are on your combat skills, which is great because I don't have any combat skills. Like Melissa said, nobody would ever want me to be on the battlefield serving this country because I was in boot camp all day. I tried to learn marksman, and I, to this day, cannot shoot a gun. So, it's great that I got put in admin, and that's what they said was, okay, you're fine. You don't really have to learn how to shoot that much because you're an admin. So, yeah. But yeah, so I worked my way up because of my skills at taking projects and really putting a lot of thought into things. I worked with a bunch of other program managers in order to get these projects up and going. I mean, like taking a lot, before I got out of the military, my last 7 months I was on deployment, and I took over a program where it needed to be overhauled. Otherwise, we were not going to pass inspection. And yeah, people are already nodding, like, what that's like in the military. You have goals and you have to meet them. So I helped reorient that process, and that's how I excelled, which is, like I said, something that I still use today in my current job. And I guess another thing that I really noticed when I was in the military was a lot of social issues, which, by the way, corporate America isn't really great at that either. In the Navy, there are about, I think the statistic is it's like 85% male, or it's well, when I was in, it was like 75% were male and like 25% were women. So that was incredibly hard to get promoted in that environment. And it was incredibly hard to live in that kind of environment. I know that sexual harassment is something that is well documented in the news, but it's something where like when you're in as like an E3 or an E4 and you're trying and you have like maybe a goal to get to become a leader, it's just very challenging because there are so few women at top. And if they are at the top, they are usually ridiculed for either being there because they're a bitch or because they're attractive and people really like their personality. So it's usually not, yeah, but it's usually not based off their merit. It's not based off of their competence or their capabilities. It's because, oh, she's pretty, or oh, she's a bitch, so nobody wants to work with her. Whereas a man never had that. And interestingly enough, I also noticed that, so you'd think that as women, we're such a small minority, we'd stick together. But actually, we somehow managed to backbite a lot. Like, I mean, I found that a lot of the time, women were trying to gain attention from men rather than working with each other. And that's something where I also notice it in corporate America a little bit. So I think that it's just these stereotypes that we just need to keep getting rid of. And yeah, I was interested in a lot of things. Like, so I was an admin, and I was also there during the transition from paper to digital. So we had a lot of double documentation. And what infuriated me again was like the inefficiencies of all the paper that we wasted. So I tried to like establish a recycling program and thought that it was another thing I didn't like was how we go through uniforms so often, but we still have, right? Like it's interesting, right? Like we have the same uniform pattern. Why do we have to, and to dispose it, it's considered government property. So you can't just like give it away or throw it away. You have to like give it away in such a manner that like is really convoluted. So I wanted to like get to the bottom of that too, where I was like, okay, can we just find a better system to get rid of our old uniforms? So I don't know. I'm just obviously a very boring, efficient person, and I'm just always trying to find ways to, to make things simpler. Yeah, and so it's stuff that I continuously learn. So after all these things that I experienced in the military, I was getting to my end days, and I decided to get out. I got out April 2014 and traveled for a good 6 or 7 months around Europe, and it was really fun. I did that with the money that I saved when I was in the military, and because I love to travel, I started. I enrolled at Pepperdine University in Malibu, used my GI Bill, and got a degree in international relations, and then later international business. But so through the process, I had some like internships working with nonprofits, and I was looking about what I wanted to do, what kind of job I wanted to get, and I think it's interesting. I looked at it as, okay, what type of job do I want? Because I thought that I had a lot to offer. Because I was, in the military, I had this admin job, I worked with a lot of executives, I had leadership experience, I like managed programs and projects, and I thought, I have so much over these like college students that just, like they can barely get out of bed for an 8 a.m. class. And some of them smell like, like I have it in. But I was shocked at how hard it was. Like, and I did admin. It's not that hard to translate those skills, I would have thought. And so that was something that I learned, just like Carlin. I learned that what I needed to do was sell myself differently. And I needed to speak civilian language, and I also got help by U.S. vets, or no, not U.S. vets. They did not help me. I got help from another like military nonprofit. So if you know anyone or if you work with those are absolutely helpful, like very helpful. So they helped me try to reorient my language. But, and then I eventually got the job that I have now, which is in consulting. But even that was kind of hard because, so I found it by somebody reaching out to me via LinkedIn, and it was through a military hiring process. But even that was kind of challenging because, and something that I want to mention today is that I had 4 years of military experience where I worked in admin with executives, and under executives, I managed other people. I was their supervisor, and then I also had a university degree, but I was not put in the same track as the other officers that had the same kind of experience did. So I'm the same age and I have the same experience as people that were just officers, and yet they came in as a level above me at my current company. So, I mean, I'm really grateful that a really, awesome company. I mean, in consulting, you get to work with so many different companies, especially like in corporate consulting. You have a lot of great experience that you're getting. So I'm really grateful for that. But I do wish that like we could have, even within that, and it's great that they have this hiring initiative, but to just understand that it's best to look beyond just military and actually look at what the person did in the military and maybe ask them what they did and ask them to expound on that, because it's more, it should be looked at as a job and not as, like you're some kind of soldier. So, yeah. Thanks.